down the opportunity of at least talking and getting to know. I'm not saying throw yourself around town and be a floozy, but I believe that these young people owe it to themselves to keep their options open and at least have a civil conversation with these people, with other folks. Now, those of you that are disagreeing with me right now will say, well, maybe, but only if they divulge it to the one they're with. I get that. I think that's fair and respectful. The problem is how many of us, male or female, would be comfortable with a spouse or not a spouse, but a partner coming to us and saying, hey, just so you know, I really enjoy your company, I really like you, but we're young, and I think we both owe it to ourselves to keep our options open, and so I'm going to continue to talk to other people. I'm not going to date them, I'm not going to kiss them, but just want to kind of keep my options open. I don't know if you're the one or not, and they should be able to say the same thing back to her and come to an agreement. That's a mature response to a situation, but let's be real honest, when it comes to people in general and love, maturity sometimes goes out the window. So that's kind of something what I'm talking about, why, based upon my own first two relationships, why I really truly believe so many people get involved and they want to get married, they want to be in love with the idea of being in love. They overlook things that were maybe red flags to them until, guess what, now they're 5 years and two kids into a relationship. All those little things have built up over time. And then nowadays, it's just too easy to throw in the towel. It's too easy to go somewhere else. It's too easy, right? Our society has changed in such a way. When my parents were, growing up, and some young people listening to this will talk about their grandparents, you know, probably the two-parent working households were probably 20%. Well, I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just trying to be real. There's a lot less temptation when one parent, one partner, one spouse is home all day and not exposed to a whole lot. Um, it doesn't make it right. I'm just stating the fact. And then as you get towards my generation, um, or my parents' generation, maybe, uh, the two working household probably went up to 40, 50%. Well, guess what? Now there's much more exposure, right? Now both spouses are in workplaces. They're meeting other people. They're meeting lots of other people. And it's real easy to have the doldrums at home and be in a rut and go into work and see that one person that you seem to have had some kind of connection with, some kind of spark. Even if they're being a predator and just they say, look, I know I can go ahead and say the right thing to him or her, and at this moment they're so vulnerable, they're gonna respond, and that happens. And nowadays, the two parent, two spouse working household is up to, probably 80%. So now not only do you have much more time away, you've got much more exposure and temptation. And I don't mean temptation like everything is a temptation, but when you get involved and you expose yourself to those things, things can happen. Then on top of it, you now add social media. You got social media right now where if somebody wants to be get some attention, they can log onto a site and have 30, 40, 50 people looking at them, talking to them within a few hours. Hell, there's a site out there that caters to married people to have affairs. So you've got so much going on out there, and then we wonder why our divorce rate is at 50%, and why there are multiple marriages, including my own situation, right? Because how could people survive these days? You think you get married at 25 or 30, and you make it work. I mean, when you were back in the day, someone came home to you, you worked at the relationship. Now it's just a lot of people. I don't need to work at it because so and so's already caught my eye. I've got this lined up and set up, and off they go. And then we sit here and shake our heads and go, why is our divorce rate so high? I know that probably sounds like I'm lecturing. I'm just trying to call a spade a spade. These are some of the reasons why we're where we are as a society, and unless we do something individually to make it work, it's just going to continue to go down that path. So, something I talked about earlier, or mentioned earlier, was somebody asked me, and I'll talk about this. Well, before I get into that, let me talk about my own situation for a minute. So I was not, I was no different than anybody else. I thought that I didn't really know what true love was because I'd never experienced it. I didn't know what it was like to be involved in a relationship like that. That is full of love and respect and admiration and caring and passion on every level. It wasn't until after I was married and divorced that I got to experience that. And as I mentioned, I did experience it. I experienced it, and it was the deepest and the truest. And to those people out there, men and women, that watch The Notebook and talk about The Notebook and say that's the kind of love I want, I mean, it really was that kind of situation. And I'm not in it any longer, but because I was in it, I have the ability now to not do what I did in my younger years, which was settle and convince myself I know what it is I'm looking for. Um, that brings me back to another point as I digress and go back to something else I was talking about a little bit earlier. We talked about marriages and failures of marriages, and we settle and things like that. So one of the examples I'll use for that is you take a look at this. I think there's a trilogy now of these 50 Shades of Grey movies, right? I think the 50 Shades of Grey and whatever that's the follow-up movies to it has probably grossed a $250 billion. Of course I'm exaggerating, but look, it's grossed a lot of money. A lot of people have gone to see it. Well, I think everybody but two people that have gone to see those movies are women. So here's my point about how we fail and people aren't really in those perfect relationships, because those women go to those movies because there's a part of them inside that wants to be involved, that wants to be that person, that has that side of them. But their husbands and spouses at home, probably either by choice or by ignorance, have no idea that their wives think like that their wives have that side of them. So here you have these women that are going to these movies and they're getting their minds tingled and aroused, and they're getting their heart racing, and they're saying, what an amazing relationship, and God, if a man did that to me or touched me that way. And then they go home to their husband who's completely oblivious to it, and then the next day at work some guy shoots a spark at them, and here we go. And the point I'm making is not to disparage anybody, because guys do the same thing. Again, if you think the 50 Shades trilogy grossed a lot of money, go look at the porn industry, and the porn industry is, 87 quadrillion billion dollars, and I'd probably venture to guess that 80% of that is male driven, right? So now you have these males going, where the wives are at, 50 Shades of Grey, going and doing whatever they're doing, looking at whatever they're looking at, and saying, boy, I wish my wife did this or did that, and I wish my husband did this or did that, and nobody's talking in the middle. And then they come home and they start to end up almost resenting each other because he's not him and she's not her. And so, like I said, there's a simple little thing to think about to understand what I'm saying. I mean, how many of you women out there found the 50 Shades things to be, tantalizing to some degree? Titillating? I don't know what the word is. I'm ignorant. I don't know. But, and then if you ask yourself, how many of you feel comfortable communicating those thoughts to your spouse? And therein lies the problem. You have this part of you, but you're afraid of either being judged or being honest, or you can't be, or you're afraid how he'll respond or he won't respond, and there we have this problem, this issue. So, going back to me now a little bit. So I had just a truly great love. It didn't work out, and then I met Heather and had my kids, and that took up a great chunk of my life, and that supplemented what I lost. And in fairness to Heather or anybody else I've met, quite frankly, since I've kind of got out there dating again, nobody really stood a chance, because it's hard to compare to that. It's rare. I mean, I didn't have it for the longest time, and then I had it, and you lose it. But where I'm blessed is I have something to compare it to. I'm not going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole anymore. I'm not going to settle for 95%. I know what it's like, and I wish everybody at least had that experience. Some may be bitter that they don't have it anymore, but I have something to move forward to. I tell people when I get out into the dating world, and I've been was dating on and off I told you about my other relationship. I'll talk about that shortly. I've been dating on and off. I know inside of 5 minutes if somebody's not the one for me. And I don't know that they are the one, but I know inside of 5 minutes if somebody's not the one. And I just don't believe in dragging things on. So, in the dating world, it's funny. I'll go out to dinner with someone and I'll know inside of 5 minutes. And they could be a great person. It has nothing to do with them whatsoever. And just know. And they don't. And they might want to say, well, don't we deserve a second date or a third date? And you don't even know me. But you kind of do. And my point is, I don't believe in going on second, third, fourth dates if whatever it is for me, isn't there. Everyone else can decide their own stuff, but this is just me talking about me right now. And I know I'm running long today, and I don't care. This is going to be one of my last few diatribes. It's 4th of July. We're all off. If you don't want to listen, you can turn off. If you hear what I'm saying is some value to you, please keep listening. So, like I said, I just don't believe in dating somebody for 5, 6 weeks, having them call up their friends and I met this great guy, and having you call up your friends, hey, I met this great girl. When you already know almost from jump that there's something there that just isn't gonna make this thing happen. I've had some friends that, and I've heard this a lot of times in life, this just isn't me. I've heard people sit there and say, well, I knew him or her for 3 or 4 years. I hated him, I hated her, and now they're happily married, as happy as can be. Again, that works for them. That's unbelievable. That's great. I give them all the credit in the world. It's just not what works for me. I've got a couple of people, in fact, the family of my ex-girlfriend, the one that's kind of been in and out of my life for the last few years, and partially why I'm taking this journey. Her daughter met her first boyfriend when she was maybe 15, 16 years old, and they're in their late 20s and married now and happily as could be, and they've only, as far as I know, only dated each other. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying that you can't have true love on a high level. Her son, 21, 22 right now, been dating the same girl for 5 or 6 years. I don't know what's going to come of it, but my point is, for certain people, it's right. But for others, we talk ourselves into it. We want to be married. We want to be in love. We want to either chase or be chased. And we're not honest with ourselves. And then we take the next step because, well, we dated 2 years, so it's only the next step. We're supposed to get engaged, right? And then you get engaged and we're supposed to get married. And then now you're in it, and what do you do? So I think that's why there's a high rate of divorce, a high rate of infidelity, along with some of the other things I mentioned. I said I was going to talk about my definition of soulmates, and I do believe in soulmates, but I don't believe that they are, every third person as society seems to think. So I was talking a long time ago with somebody about the idea of soulmate, and here's my definition of a soulmate. And you guys can tell me whether you think I'm crazy, right, wrong. Again, I want my website here to be something where it's interactive, but my definition of a website goes like this. If you have a child the same sex as your partner, in my case I'm a guy, so if I had a daughter, could I look at that person and say, if my daughter grows up to be exactly like her,